Hello everybody, my name's Niels Buus and I'm the St. Vincent's Chair of Mental Health Nursing and the Director of the Centre for Family-Based Mental Health Care. This is the 5th session on Open Dialogue for mental health staff engaged with the St. Vincent's Open Dialogue initiative. The initiative includes 5 sessions, 5 workshops at each site, and before each session all participants prepare by watching a small video like this one and reading a text about open dialogue. The accompanying text for this workshop is written by psychologist Anne Trimble in 2005 called Healing Elements of Therapeutic Conversation, Dialogue as an Embodiment of Love. I guess that Jaakko Saikola and David Trimble took a chance when they decided to describe their therapy as linked with love, because love very often includes connotations of romance and sex, but they're trying to describe the very strong feelings that can arise during a network meeting. Their point is that their experiences at network meetings can include these collective strong feelings of sharing and belonging. It can include emerging expressions of trust and embodied expressions of emotion. And if the network meetings are highly successful, it also includes feelings of relief of the tension that might have been operating in or present in certain networks. To understand dialogism, we have to look at the influence the Russian philosopher Bakhtin has on Jaakko Saikola's work. Open dialogue had grown out of a systemic family therapy approach to meetings, and within this theory, this paradigm, families are conceived in a particular systemic way and they're given particular tasks between sessions. And what the team around Saikola found out was that they could not make sense of this within the new open dialogue framework, because families had become collaborators in this very open network meeting. So they were unsatisfied with the theory, the concepts that systemic family therapy gave them, and they were looking for an alternative. The story is that in search of an alternative to systemic family therapy, Jaakko Saikola had come across an essay on the Russian philosopher Bakhtin's work on Dostoevsky's books and novels. And the point here is that in Dostoevsky's writing, the characters are described using their inner and outer voices, and when this creates a polyphony, a multiplicity of voices that bring or push the narrative forward. This is in contrast to other writers who install a narrator, someone in the background who knows what will happen and who pushes the narrative forward. Jaakko Saikola takes Bakhtin's notion of a polyphony and says it's the same thing that happens in a group meeting, that there's a multiplicity of voices, of inner voices, of outer voices, who come together and create new meanings. And a key point is that this process is outside someone's control. It's autonomous. Bakhtin did his studies in literature, but soon he starts to conclude about some fundamentals about being human, and he develops a theory about relationship building, about response structures that resemble the social psychological theories developed by George Herbert Mead. For Bakhtin, the point is that we're born into dialogical relationships. We're born into response structures, and we learn about ourselves. We become ourselves through the responses we give to the world. A key point is that language does not belong to the speaker. We are, as individuals, born into language, socialized into language, and in this sense, language is not situated within me, but it's situated between people. For Bakhtin, an utterance is never novel, it's never original, it's always based on something that went before it. It's always created as a response to something that went before. This doesn't mean that you cannot create something novel or new. It means that the creativity of using language as a response to language as it's been handed over to us gives the opportunity to create something new. A further point is that language is bound to the particular social context. This, of course, means that the same words do not mean the same thing in different contexts. The arch enemy, the Voldemort of open dialogue, is a monologue. And a monologue is the situation where someone has concluded in advance what should take place. It's the situation where the speaker does not listen to the surroundings, is not prepared to take the not knowing position that the other person might be right and the speaker might be wrong. A monological situation would be a case review meeting where there's a pre-meeting where clinicians decide what should happen during the meeting. Then there's the actual meeting where a consumer is invited in to hear what should happen. And then afterwards there's a post-meeting where clinicians decide what's going on and which actions should be taken. The aspiration of open dialogue is the opposite, that the intention is not to create change, it's not to define the situation for the person and the family in need, rather it's about creating a dialogue and then believing in dialogue to the extent that new meaning will arise, and that new meaning, the support generated in the network meetings, will have the capacity of changing people's views on their problems and thus changing the way in which they manage their problems. When we look at the way in which open dialogue is organized, we've spoken at length about the integrated care part of open dialogue, and the integrated care part of open dialogue can be seen as a way of facilitating optimal chances of creating the space for open dialogue. In the paper, Cycler and Trimble emphasize 3 team tasks that can be used during the network meetings. First of all, they talk about asking for information. And this is a way of saying that the team needs to use the everyday language of the families. They have to pursue details and invite comments on people's responses to questions, and in this way to create the polyphony in the network. The key thing here is to ask. It's about posing questions where people are gentle in their response. It could be to say, can I ask for this question? I was wondering about what you said before, which made me think of, etc., etc. Secondly, it's about listening intentionally and compassionately as each speaker takes a turn. This means that each speaker is acknowledged as a participant, as a human, but at the same time it assists people in articulating their concerns. It helps people to be more confident in using their voice. Finally, there's the reflective team function during the network meetings. This has got at least two important functions. First of all, it's about reflecting for people what the clinicians have just heard. It's about giving people the opportunity to hear their own voice articulated in another voice, and the small difference between the original utterance and the reflected utterance can help people understand their own position better. It's in this tiny gap that new meaning can arise for family members. The second important thing is that reflecting together as clinicians can help the team members tolerating the uncertainty of their work, inherent to their work. In conventional mental health, we are as clinicians socialized to give people solutions, to have a single plan for people when they're in trouble. Open dialogue offers a different approach to this. Problems and approaches to solving problems are not fixated once and for all. This means that the network meetings, the discussions are ongoing and issues develop through time. This, of course, creates a lot of anxiety. It creates uncertainty about how people are faring. And the reflective dialogue between clinicians is a way of managing the uncertainty. It's a way of making sure that they can stay in uncertainty. It should be mentioned that it's also a way of ensuring that they stay in uncertainty, that they accept that not everything can be known in advance, and to make sure that they do not jump to conclusions and start to define situations according to socialized professional norms or theoretical perspectives. This is the end of the 5th presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.